All right. I hereby call to order this meeting of the Strategic Housing Finance Corporation of Travis County. We are at 1033 La Posada Drive today, and it is 1:05 p.m. The first order of business will be the call to order, roll call, confirmation of quorum.
President Julio Gonzalez Altamirano.
Present.
Vice President Jan Winning.
Present.
Director Delete Becker. Director Keisha Prince.
Here.
Director Lisa Reams.
Here.
Director Rebecca Weber.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Wonderful. Let's move to item number 2, which is our public forum citizen communication. Is there anybody signed up to speak? Ms. Honeycutt.
We believe we may have one or two people on Zoom.
A Zoomer.
Can revisit it later.
We may revisit this as time allows. We are going to move to item number 3, Director's Report. An update from the Executive Director, Ms. Diana Gray. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Welcome board members and guests. If we can advance the slides, Kevin. One more. First of all, I'd like to start with, I think, fantastic news. One back, please.
I gotta look at the pictures. Come on.
I know.
I want to recognize our
people. So as you know, a big part of our body of work for the latter part of this year, in addition to tending to our pipeline, is building the team. And so I'm very happy to announce our 2 significant hires for the organization. The first is David Dinoff, who will serve as Deputy Director. David comes to us from Capital A, Affordable Housing, where he's been serving as Director of Real Estate. He has significant experience in other sort of affordable housing and lending, community development financial institution, and I think importantly also started his career in Chicago working with troubled buildings and sort of rehabilitating problem properties there. So I think is very sensitive to our interest in the quality of housing and maintenance, and will, I think, help us from a strategic standpoint as well as an operational standpoint. David begins October 8th. The second hire is Alex Radke, who is currently with the City of Austin Housing Finance Corporation in a very similar role. She will be serving as our Director of Real Estate, so really the lead of our transaction team. She is the Housing Development Manager on the partnerships that the city engages in currently for tax credits, and 4 and 9% tax credits, as well as some of their RFP work. She has a background in land planning and economic development. She also worked in the city's density bonus programs, et cetera, so has some sense of that environment, and she will begin October 14th.
Yay, wonderful.
Yeah. So we will look forward to welcoming them in person next meeting.
Let's hold all our questions for the director till the end.
Sure.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So just to give you a sense of the next steps on building the team, as a reminder, we had a total of 10 hires targeted by the end of the year. So those are the first 2 of 10. We begin interviews for Director of Finance and Administration tomorrow. And we have a Director of Planning and External Affairs posted currently. It closes on the 9th, and we would then start that process. So with those 4 folks in place, they will help us with the remaining positions, which include a couple of housing finance analysts, 2 administrative positions. Debbie is really wearing all of the hats right now on the admin side, and we anticipate having an admin, an assistant in the real estate space, one in the general operations space, and then sort of executive coordinator, which will be both supporting the executive team and really the board function, an asset and compliance manager, and a policy analyst, which will be more sort of general planning outside of the finance piece. Do you have any questions about this before I move on to the next topic? Excellent. All right. So in terms of the financial report, which you have in your packages, of course, I will note that you may have seen the format changed a little bit. We get the reports in 2 different formats from our the third party consultant that we work with. We decided to utilize this format this month. We expect that in the future we'll customize so that we can kind of get everything we want out of a single report. But our cash and equivalents sit at right around 9 million and our net assets at almost 9.6 million. When we look at our year-to-date budget to actual, our income is about 70% of what we was projected for this time this year, as assuming smooth, sort of receipt of income over those months. So it is a bit lower, but of course our expenses are also quite a bit lower. Now, of course, we expect there to be a market increase in expenditure in the last 3 to 4 months of the year as we hire and engage some additional consultant support. But I think just in terms of tracking whether, we're going to be okay this year, knowing that we were working from projections that from previous staff, we do expect, we have a closing next week. By October, we will have revenue of over 2.3 million. So even if we spend the entire budget, which I don't think we will, I think we're going to come in under budget this year, we will be at break even, likely better. And then, of course, as you know, and we'll talk about a little bit more, we're working on much more detailed revenue projections so that we can be more specific in what how we expect that revenue flow to play out in the future. The reports you have this month do not include the additional $2 million that you put into the budget last month. Those will appear in the September reports. I think that's all on the financials, unless you have other questions. Right, moving along. So in terms of our pipeline and portfolio, just sort of high level, we still have 9 board-approved deals in the pipeline to close. We did have 1 project drop out, but we'll have our work cut out for us in the coming months, moving projects through the MOU and document process and getting to close, the first being next week. We have 22 active partnerships in which we are serving as the GP and have an ownership stake in the property for a total of almost 5,500 units. Of those active partnerships, 6 of them are under construction, 16 are operational. In terms of that operational portfolio, 15 of the projects have stabilized occupancy. In other words, they've been up and operating for some time. They have their permanent mortgage. The weighted occupancy across that portfolio is 86%. That number has dropped a bit from last month for reasons I can just, I think, describe here in a moment. And then we do have 1 project that's in lease up, which means it's, it's new, it's been leasing up. It's at 91% occupancy, so we do expect it to convert to its permanent mortgage by the end of the year. Next slide. So this provides the detail of the occupancy across the portfolio. Red is anything under 80%. Yellow is anything under 90. We'd obviously, if you look at November of 23, we'd really prefer to be there. We're a column with all green. But this has been a market that has been softening a bit, and I do expect that as we bring on an asset manager, we may not be able to change the market, but we will be paying closer attention and working more closely with our partners to see if we can assist in any way in shoring up occupancy. Any questions on this?
Villages at Fiskville.
Sorry?
Villages at Fiskville.
Thank you.
When you're ready, you can conclude your presentation and come back whenever you want to address it.
So this may be the last slide. Let's go ahead and take the question on Villages. I mean, we've had conversations with them. They've had, I think, been working on it for some time. Keith, I don't know if you've had any more recent conversations with them, but...
The most recent conversation I had with them was about the same time you and I spoke with them a couple months ago. We spoke with the regional manager for the property management company, and they have had some issues out there. Elderly properties are always kind of slow to release, and they also have had some residents pass out there, so that takes a little bit of time. And I know that they're working on making some concessions. I don't know, I can't report to you exactly what those are right now, but they are just struggling a little bit with the market, and there's new product in their market, in their sub-market, which is causing them to have a little more competition than they had up until this point. And yes,
How
ma'am.
old is that property?
I don't know how old that property is. Strategic did it as an acquisition,
Yeah.
and that occurred probably about 3 years ago.
We
2 years
acquired it in
ago.
2021, but it was a pre-existing property, so I don't know off the top of my head.
I showed it was built in 2018. I just pulled it up.
2018.
Properties.
Thank you.
That's old.
So I mean, I think this could be an item that we delve into a bit more when we do portfolio review work session. You know, I think by that time, when we do the initial work session on portfolio review, I don't know that we will have at that time our sort of asset manager on board yet, but I think we will identify a few areas that we would like them to focus on, and this would obviously be one, but it's you know, it is part of a trend across the portfolio.
Since I interrupted the flow of your presentation, I just want to say that I love the new improvements we made to how we dashboard this, both with the colors, the sparkle lines, obviously, a long desired improvement. I think one thing to consider as we keep working on how we quickly relay facts to the board. Obviously, we don't particularly because of our mission. If there's occupancy loss because there is market competition and rents are stable or going down, or folks have a lot of options, because of our mission, we're comfortable with that, to some extent. At some point, because we're a public enterprise, we have to make sure that our partners are not in a financially precarious position, and that enough income is coming in to keep the property being a quality place. Because of our mission, we also care about occupancy, because we don't want there to be a person that needs a unit that would like one of these units to not get it. And so as we hear kind of where we have occupancy gaps from I think in the past we've talked about 92 as our sort of we are happy, and there's no questions asked about that. And the sort of 80 to 92 is danger, and sub 80 is, let's think about it. Understanding if it's because there's just is it a renter's market, and that's a good thing, or if there is a problem that may require us becoming entrepreneurial. Right now, we can't be that entrepreneurial because we are building our balance sheet, getting our team together, but in the future, it might be useful to differentiate, because when I see it, a few years ago, if I had seen this much yellow, I would have freaked out. But because of what I understand that the market is going through, I'm saying, hey, renters are having a chance. So I'm not freaking out. But when the red, especially understanding that it's elderly, I'm like, it seems like that would be a little tighter. I wonder what's going on.
Yeah.
We'll dive into it. This visual presentation of facts is just very smooth. I really like finding this chart. There are a bunch of other charts in the report I really like seeing, but I don't want to use up too much of our time on that. If we could, maybe at real estate, come back to Middle Fitzville, that'd be useful. Director Winning?
A more general question, just for the director as well as for Keith. When you see this, what is it that you go into action on? Like, what are the steps you take when you see this?
Today,
I
I
know
go.
capacity is an issue.
I say, wow, we need to get that asset manager hired. So I really do think it is going to be about engaging more closely with the properties. There may be, some of it may truly be market, but like what can we do? And we had a conversation with the property management at Villages at Fiskville. One of the things that they shared with us is that they're seeing significantly more denials of applications. They use a service, right? They're not doing it. And I mean, I have a particular viewpoint on this based on my background, which is, well, if you're seeing more, denials based on someone's interaction with the justice system, maybe we need to look at that,
Yeah.
right? That is a conversation, right? Which sometimes meets with some resistance, but it's not, you got 25%. If we have this level of vacancy, right, it's a serious conversation. So, in our older properties, it may be conversations about capitalization, about repositioning, but really our older properties are all really in play right now in terms of, transfer of partnership or looking at repositioning, et cetera. So I don't want to try to answer that fully today, Director Wenig, but that's why we will have a position dedicated to working on the portfolio.
Yes.
I was curious, how many other 55 and up properties do we have?
Three. I believe it's two. We've got Cambridge Villas and we've got Commons at Minor.
Okay. Not City View. We have an older map
City
on
View was a senior's
Yeah,
property,
we
but we no
sold that.
longer
Oh,
own
we-
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
To our friends at the city
We are friends of the city.
with Project Connect money.
Okay. Thanks.
Director, you have the floor.
All right. Next slide, please, Kevin. So just a little overview of upcoming events. Director Weber shared to the board forum sort of our general timeline, anticipated timeline around budget, which has us posting our initial draft to the forum really just, I think that's next Friday. For your comment, it will of course be a work in progress, but we do want the board to have an opportunity to review it with plenty of time before we head into work sessions and meetings. We did want to let you know that we have scheduled general information meetings around Rosemont tenant investment programs for October 10th and 11th. That is one evening meeting and one daytime meeting. The information we have to share at this juncture is limited, but it has been important for the residents that have remained involved to feel like we are continuing to be available. So my feeling is that this meeting and probably the next one will be fairly perfunctory. Here's what we are, here's when we think we'll have additional news. It's also a place for people to express their opinions about what they're hearing. And so we'll share information with the board about that as we get closer. These will be virtual, particularly because we do think they may be fairly short. But wanted you to know that that is on the books, and we're sort of transitioning from the update meetings that CBR was holding every Friday. We're going now to a monthly cadence. The October board meeting, of course, is the 17th. We moved it up to conform with the bond review board deadline. Some of us will be going to the TALFA conference, including Director Wenig, in later this month. And then in terms of both budget and portfolio review, we have not confirmed this yet, but we are looking at a date of November 7th for a joint work session of Real Estate Committee and Governance, Finance, and Administration. That would allow us, we'll publicly post it because we may have quorum. And what that will allow us to do is to talk about portfolio review in general, to specifically talk about our revenue projections, which are based on analysis that we are having done by a CPA firm on all of our operating projects. That revenue projection, of course, is relevant to our budget conversation in general. So then the next meeting would be, the regular meeting would be the 21st. We hope we would be able to approve our annual budget for 2025 at that meeting. But if we need a little more time, we would have the December 12th meeting. Any questions there?
Seeing no questions, I thank the Executive Director for her report. And We move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. We have 3 items, a couple of minutes, including the postponed minutes for the special meeting from our last session, as well as the legal paperwork for the previously approved Banyan Breaker Lane Apartments transaction. Does anybody want to pull anything for discussion before we adopt it under unanimous consent? Seeing no request to pull any of the items are approved by unanimous consent unanimously. This will fit. We now move to the action agenda, where we have a few transactions to contemplate. Does the staff have a particular order that you want to go through, or any changes to the action agenda?
Yes, President Altamirano. First of all, one change is that we will not be presenting Casey Bridge today. We have a couple of items that we'd like to resolve with our partner, and so are hoping to bring that back next month. We will then proceed, we'll talk about 5-1 with Ledgestone Group, and then go on to Amberlin South Ranch. So I will go ahead and give a quick presentation overview on 5-1 and invite Craig Alter here in case you guys have any questions. But if you'll go ahead and proceed, Kevin, to slide number 8, I believe. Thank you. So today we are bringing for your consideration initial approval of a mixed income or workforce housing project called 5-1. This is a partnership with Ledgestone Development Group. It is new construction. You have here a rendering. The location is in East Austin, right at the intersection of 51st Street and 183. If you don't immediately know where that is, imagine you're driving down 183 and you see the YMCA. It is on the other side of 183 at 51st Street. Significant project, 343 units with Class A amenities generally. Next slide. I think we've mentioned that the property is, of course, right there at the YMCA, and if you know the area well, you know that there's also a golf course there. There is access to the Walnut Creek Trail and some other pedestrian resources, but obviously also good connectivity along 183 or straight in 51st Street to the Mueller area and into Central Austin. Next slide. So this just gives you a closer view of the site itself. It's just about a block in from 183. And I didn't mention that YMCA and the resources on the other side of 183 are accessible by a pedestrian bridge, which you see here. Next slide. So this is a project which has predominantly 1-bedrooms and studios. It does have 42, so a little over 10 to 15%, 12%, excuse me, of 2-bedroom units. One of the things that I'm excited about in this project is that you do see the sort of the presence of market rate units and sort of the fairly typical 40% at 120% AMI, 30% at 80% AMI. But where we typically might see 20% of the units affordable at 60% of area median income, these units are affordable at 50%. So we do get some deeper affordability in 69 of the units, and those units are distributed proportionately by bedroom, bathroom configuration. Next slide. So when we do the public benefit analysis, we're basing this on about $22.2 million estimated abated tax value over 15 years. And let me pause here and say, you remember that we updated our terms in late June. This project started through our process before we changed those terms. So we've yet to bring the first deal to you that is going through our process entirely under the new term sheet. And so 49% of the abated taxes in this project are being returned in the discounts to the rents. Remember that our new threshold is 60%. but this is fairly typical amongst the other deals we've done under our previous term sheet. And between reduced rents, developer fee, all of the various fees that you see in our typical deals, without any bonus points, the project returns 87% of the abated tax value, and then have elected almost 5 points in our bonuses to get to a total of 91.9. So I will pause now. I want to invite, actually go on to the next slide, please, Kevin. So Ledgestone is a new partner for Strategic, but is quite established. And there is a familiar face here in the room, Craig Alter, who is our contact at Ledgestone on this project, is a managing director and was HATSE's executive director, departing about 10 years ago in 2014. One of the development consultants here also was a former HATSE commissioner and SHFC board member. Next slide. So I think just a reminder that what we are asking for today is authorization to finalize an MOU with the developer and then move on to final documents. Like the deal that was on the consent agenda today, we would come back to the board for final approval. So we'll take questions now and invite Craig to come.
Are there any questions of the executive director before Mr. Alter addresses us? No. Mr. Alter, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's really fun to be here on this side of the table. It's so calm. I like that. Congratulations. Really, I'm here to answer your questions, should you have any regarding the project. We're extremely excited about it. We think it's going to be, I'm going to just say, it will be the best property that you're going to have in your portfolio. We have gone to a great deal of effort to thoughtfully design it. We come from a I've worked with the principals for over 20 years. I was telling Diane that my introduction to the brewers, Cass Brewers, our president, was when we were building trails at the park on Slaughter Lane. I was with Foundation Communities at the time. And Cass and I developed a relationship over the years, and we've gone in and out of affordable housing and other activities, and we tried hard to get the Tannehill project to the city. Mm-hmm. And we actually scored, we had the highest score, but we didn't get the project. So we went on from there and see this as a real opportunity to serve the community in a way that we weren't able to do all by ourselves. And it's going to help us, and it's going to help the community at the same time. So I think it's the classic, I mean, it is the win-win situation that we typically always try to strive for. So we're excited about that aspect as well. But we come from a very design-centric perspective. We build a variety of product, from very high-end condominiums to apartment buildings to build-for-rent townhomes. And we're always focused on what is the user experience, and we want to maximize the user experience. So that's where we start and go from there and see how much we can put into a project and it still make financial sense. So in this case, staff suggested that we go deeper in the affordability level, and we were able to do that. So we were able to accommodate that desire to go deeper and to offer a lower rent. And it just, all the factors just happen to come together, and that doesn't always happen. So in this case, we were able to be responsive and come up with, I think, a very good plan for you.
What I didn't mention, do you want to talk about the commercial space?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I was going to ask about that.
And I got one other,
Yeah.
I want to nudge you on one other thing you told the
Okay.
real
And
estate
just to build on your question, if you could talk about the commercial space, but particularly how your community engagement
That's
led to
it.
your thinking about
That's what I
the
want.
Okay.
design.
Sure.
We've heard this in real estate,
Yeah,
obviously, so.
we want you to repeat it to
Well-
the
Good to hear
board.
what we-
Yeah.
The community space is the result of two things, and one is the zoning itself. The vertical mixed-use zoning requires that there be some commercial space. In addition to that, the adjacent neighborhood really wanted to see some commercial close by, closer than Miller. So we're able to provide what should be a significant amount of retail space right at the front of the building, and it's designed to promote activity between the neighborhood and our retail space. So there will be an open plaza that extends out past the sidewalk. It'll be hopefully a gathering area. That's the way we view it, and provide the reasonable or the services that people would need, be it, it's a who knows. We got a long list of possibilities, but small businesses that really will serve the immediate needs, so people don't have to drive very far to take care of something. The neighborhood group was extremely excited about having that there because it served a long-standing need of theirs. We did communicate with the neighborhood extensively. We walked the site together. We walked their neighborhood together. We walked the trail and it is literally a trail from 51st Street down to MLK. And at MLK there's a bus pickup station. The path is kind of rough, but we're going to go ahead and improve that path along our property. The city's talking about extending it further, so when and if that happens, I can't exactly say, but the goal is to go ahead and continue that. Actually, Tannehill, which is what we're building, will extend all the way to MLK should that happen in the future, but there's some work that's going to take. There's going to be some work required to get that done, like move their detention pond. But
Any
that's
other
the goal.
questions from the directors? Any other questions from the
I have a
directors?
comment.
Yes, yes.
This is super cool. I bike by there all the time. I'm really excited that there's going to be some stores, and I really appreciate you doing the deeper affordability.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question if no other directors have questions. This is a question we always ask our first-time partners. It's sort of like a first-date question. We care a lot about the tenant experience. Obviously, in our partnership, we have to trust the partner to do what's right for the tenants. Could you give me an example or explain to us how and when, under what circumstances, you may choose to replace your property manager?
Mhm. Yeah. Me personally, and I will be very involved, hands-on with this development, but management really starts at the very beginning of a project. I mean, ideally, you've got management that comes in and assists you design your facilities and helps you understand how they can best serve the residents. So we'll do that. And we've already done that. And then, as you know, you've got your annual meetings where you set up your next year's budget. You discuss the performance of the property. The key thing throughout the year, though, is are they enforcing the policies of the community? Are they, that is 80% of what management needs to be, in my opinion. Are they enforcing the rules that need to be enforced to ensure that everybody has the opportunity to enjoy their space, their place, their home, without feeling offended or afraid in any way? So if we are not getting the responsiveness from a manager that's necessary to correct problems that seem to be ongoing for more than, say, 2 months, for example, it's time to really consider if a change is needed or not. And a lot of times that's just simply the manager on site is the wrong manager versus the company is the wrong company. So I've had many Cambridge Villas was a great example even of trying to figure out how to turn management around such that they perform to your level of expectations. So it's a lot of communication. It takes a lot of time. You have to be clear, and you have to have a good roadmap to go against, to evaluate against. But with all that, it's just a matter of you as an owner making sure and requiring that there be an adherence to your approach to how the residents will be treated, how the property will be maintained, how the collections will be, dealt with, what the reporting is like, and all that, so that it runs as smoothly as it should.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, you do the monthly tempo check.
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions from directors? Director Wenig?
Yeah, on the same question of property management, you were here in the room when we were reviewing some performance measures on our current portfolio, and there was occupancy issues. Our director brought up the question of possible property management application denial patterns. And since we have you here, and hopefully won't take too much time on our agenda today, what are some of the values that you try to communicate to property management in terms of eviction prevention or allowance for Section 8 voucher applicants, second chance for criminal justice records, history of eviction, or anything else that comes to mind in terms of how you instruct your property manager to really honor and create an atmosphere of equity for the applicants and to keep the property also alive and vibrant with a mix of individuals seeking homes.
Right. Well, fortunately, you've got a little more leeway than if HUD was your baseline. So that helps. It's I think it really is it almost is a philosophical discussion you have, and it's how far are you willing to extend yourself as a owner to give somebody that chance. So I think there needs to be a cohesive policy that the board develops and the staff can implement. This is what we're willing to do. I would not want to put it in the hands of a property manager, asset manager, to try to figure that out on their own, because that's going to just require too much of them, and you may become subject to inconsistency across the board. So good policy is the place to start. I'm sorry, I'm going to throw it right back to you. But
do you have a track record in this area you want to reference?
As far as denials go, you really need to understand what is happening. What is going on here that causes these denials? First thing, honestly, when I saw that, the first thing I thought was, okay, it's locationally derived. What does the location have to do with it, if anything? Is it attracting people that are unqualified for some reason? Okay. Yes or no? Throw that away or deal with it. Is the review process somewhat different than normal? Yes or no? It's literally one step at a time going through it and trying to understand how that could be, because all your other properties, there's nothing like that one. Mm-hmm. So there's a fundamental something going on that shouldn't be that hard to figure out.
Yeah, and just to land this back with where I started, just in terms of Section 8 voucher applicants and so forth.
Okay, Section 8 is an automatic yes. You just do it. Yeah. You don't even think about that. Yeah. Just accept that.
And eviction prevention?
With a criminal history.
Yeah.
Again, I would support, if I was you, supporting giving someone with a criminal history within the bounds of what you think is acceptable to provide a chance to go ahead and have that chance. you got to define how far out you want to go on the ledge.
And do you have any history with eviction prevention in your properties?
Not specifically, other
Okay.
than working with groups that have that ability to help somebody prevent or get the resources that they need to keep themselves, say, current when it comes to rent.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Madam Executive Director and Mr. Alter.
You're welcome.
It would be appropriate to move to discussion after someone moves for adoption. Is there a move to adopt this
so
resolution?
moved.
All right, I saw Director Reams raise her hand first, and so it will be seconded by Director Wenig. And now we are in discussion as a board. Would anybody like to floor? To raise points or? No, seeing none, then I think it would be appropriate to vote on this via a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Matter carries unanimously with the present board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to
It's
it.
exciting.
All right.
Don't let us down, Mr. Alter.
We know where to find
We know
you.
where to find it.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Before we move
Yeah.
on to the next agenda item, something I wanted to mention that we are working on implementing with Ledgestone is that it is our intent as we move forward increasingly to ideally have our MOU almost ready for execution when we bring it to the board. We think it, obviously it adds to clarity that we're able to give you, but it also adds to clarity in the relationship, and that we're then able to execute quite soon after board vote and move into documents. So that is a work in progress, but I do want to mention that this is a project that we're quite advanced at this stage with the MOU and hope to execute it quite soon.
Thank you. That is a very important operational improvement that is not very sexy, but is part of being the best HFC in Texas. So,
Not very sexy.
not
That's
very
my job.
sexy,
No,
but
it's, I think it is.
it makes, well, it makes it's good for our partners. It adds policy clarity for us.
Right.
We can, but
Yes.
we know. Yes, good.
Yes.
So let's get to item C, and this is item 50, Amberlin South Ranch. If the staff is ready to present.
Yes. Next slide, please. So we're presenting today Amberlin South Ranch for the board for consideration, also to approve the negotiation and execution of an MOU for a mixed income or workforce housing project. New construction, 4-story wrap. This is an active adult, is sort of their nomenclature. It's a senior property. The location of this is really down almost in Manchac, between Manchac and where FM, I think it's 1626, we'll look at it in a moment, intersects with I-35. So the image you have here is of a similar project in Pflugerville. This will be 202 units, 1 and 2 bedrooms. Sparrow Partners, also a first-time partner for SHFC. This project does have permits in hand, so we would be looking to move toward close pretty expeditiously in this case as well. We'll move on to the next slide, please. So look, we've lost a little bit here, but it shows you the general orientation of the location. East of Manchac, closer to heading toward I-35, is essentially at the intersection of 1626 and South First Street, which extends, who knew, all the way down to San Leanna. And I think that while it is it's quite far south, pretty proximate to South Park Meadows and significant retail, et cetera, in that area. The developer has indicated that there aren't any active adult properties in the immediate proximity here, which is relevant given the conversation we've had this morning or this afternoon about competition in the submarket. It is about 20 minutes to downtown Austin or the airport. Next slide, please. So this is about 7 acres, is triangular site with the longest sort of frontage on 1626, surrounded predominantly by single-family neighborhoods. Next slide. So again, 202 units split almost evenly between 1 and 2 bedrooms. This is a more typical distribution of affordability, 20% of the units at 60%, the remainder at 120 with 10% at market. And the units are distributed proportionally by bed and bath size. Next slide, please. So interestingly, on this property, because of the submarket, even though there are 60% units and not 50% units like the deal that you looked at previously, we do get almost 60% of the abated tax value in rent reductions, just because the market rents are a bit higher. Again, this was under our previous term sheet that we underwrote this deal, and so looking at a combination of at-close, general contractor, and a sort of an origination fee, annual lease payment, partnership management fees of $25,000, increasing by 3% annually, and then on the risk side, we do share in 5% of cash flow, and should there be a disposition or refinance of the property, get 5% of net proceeds. I think we'll go on to the next slide, which I think simply says this again. Oh, this is, I always forget this. The partners, Sparrow is based in Addison. They're also vertically integrated, and so that they have not the development side, a construction firm, and as well as an in-house property management. And so about 22,000 units combined experience of units developed. The construction arm has completed a little over 5,000 units, and the management arm has about 6,000 units under management. You also have here an image of an interior of a similar project of theirs in Fort Worth. So finally, again, what we're asking for here today is authorization to move forward with the MOU, and to execute that MOU, which would allow us to move forward into documents, but happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the directors? Seeing no questions, I will just ask one question. Who was the person we worked most closely with on the team? Is it Mr. Jeff, Mr. Matt, or Mr. Luke?
Hey, Jeff.
Jeff?
I believe so.
Okay. This is a new partner.
Yes.
Yes.
It would be great if Mr. Jeff could visit with us in the future in the event that this is approved, just to make sure we give them the little talk about the value so that they understand if later why we're ordinary about something, that it's just because we were
Can make it protocol that we have.
Mission-driven enterprise,
Yes.
so please understand why we take it very seriously. Any other questions about this? No? Okay, seeing no questions, it would be appropriate to move to discussion after a motion is made for adoption. And I see Director Rover making that motion, and it is being seconded by Director Reams. Discussion. Director Wenig.
I found something very interesting, and I know that the developer is not here with us to answer this, so I'll just put it out there for staff. If you've talked about with them how Sparrow in these senior communities, active senior communities, talks about offering social events over 30 per month. And do you know anything about how they're staffed out with people on site for these additional services and what that's about?
I don't know what the staffing pattern is, but they have indicated that that is something they do consistently across their properties. So we're happy to, I think, to look at that. I would assume it requires some more staffing. I don't think it's primarily social events versus, deep social services, but certainly it would require some staffing.
Yeah, and the fitness classes as well. I just wondered if maybe there was even more, this is the tip of the iceberg, if there's other services that they contemplate for seniors in residence, such as like vans to the grocery store, other things that are typical in senior housing. I don't see them spelled out here. It's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Sure.
And would love to hear from them
Sure.
about how they approach the population.
Sure.
I'll
As
follow
just
up on that.
as a note, they did not claim any bonus points because they
I saw
were
that.
well over the threshold, which doesn't mean they're not doing it, but we didn't go
Exactly.
into the detail. of it.
Exactly.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
A lot of seniors are on disabilities, though they kind of like get help with their income, they get help with like their rent. What about Section 8 as far as they go and like vouchers? You know what I mean? Because I know disability doesn't take care of rent for a lot of people, so I'm just asking about that.
Yep. I think it's a fantastic question, and you may recall that when we revised our terms,
yes.
we included new bonus point in there for partners who would commit to not discriminating against people for holding vouchers. So that was not previously part of our terms. I don't recall a conversation with them, but it is something that we want to be looking at in our future deals. Of course, for tax credit deals, it's required. They must accept vouchers. But right now, it is a bonus point in our new terms, new deals going forward. I think it's always, it's a policy question for the board that the staff is happy to look into eventually. If we want to make it threshold, a requirement, the board can do that. It has a cost potentially, right? In terms of potential partners, right? So I think it's something we're happy to consider. So I don't know the specific answer. We're happy to ask.
Let's find out from Jeff, Luke, and Matt if what their track record is with Section 8.
Yeah.
And one of the, this is an important point, one of the reasons we went with, and we have been using bonuses instead of hard requirements, is because we are governed ultimately by the legislature of the state of Texas. And so at this juncture, I think, me in particular, feel it's the safest way to both incentivize compliance with real-world actors as well as avoid legislative scrutiny. Because it is for those of you familiar with like city planning land, it is not like inclusionary zoning. It is like a density bonus, and so it is voluntary. Depending on how we get through next session and how people react to these terms, we may want to revisit if that's the best mechanism. But for now, that's kind of the mechanism that exists. I know that Director Wending is very passionate about what in the field is called source of income protection. So it was very important to get it firmly in the new terms. It was not in the first version of the terms because it was just an oversight on my part as a result of none of our peer HFCs having a bonus structure to get some of these things, policy things, into the workforce terms. Director Wending, you wanted to add something to this?
Yeah, I feel like I shouldn't even ask anything more of staff at this point, but I know you're building capacity, maybe something to bookmark for the future. I think there is a wave of adopting this as a threshold requirement in Travis County throughout the other peer organizations. If we could do a quick, have somebody tasked with figuring out where that stands.
Sure.
I think it's now approaching the norm. That's my understanding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Happy to.
Seeing no questions, I think we are going to have a voice vote on this. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The matter carries unanimously, and that completes our action agenda. We will move now to discussion items. And lucky for you, these belong to me. Item A is a strategic outlook. I sent my colleagues an email and also posted on the message board the initial version of a draft strategic outlook. What is a strategic outlook? Why do we want one? So as you may recall, during our HATC era, the strategic plan for SHFC was ultimately HATC's strategic plan. As we are now a standalone entity, we do not have a strategic plan. You don't need a strategic plan. We're not breaking the law by not having one, but it is considered a widely adopted, potentially best practice to have a plan of what you're going to do as an entity. We are not in that position, and I do not believe we have an appetite either on the staff or on the board side to go through a true strategic planning process. It's like a 5-year plan with all the stakeholders consulted, et cetera. We're building too much capacity and figuring too much stuff out. But we do need a placeholder so that as we make decisions, we can go back and say, this is why we're making this decision. Here are some basic things that we care about. And so the strategic outlook is a way of solving that. It's not exactly a mini strategic plan, but it is a placeholder for a strategic plan. Please review it. We may, depending on your feedback and interest, have another discussion. The very, very practical implications of it are we need to have something that guides the enterprise so that we can evaluate our executive director over time. It can't just be lives or things that we reach for. There's got to be a reason. There's a reason for the enterprise and a plan of work for the enterprise, and our staff is aligned with that. And it's also just to guide some of our decisions. We've been making decisions serving our mission and our focus on tenant well-being. We gotta put that down and so that we are disciplined about how we make decisions. Your homework is read it, provide feedback, and be prepared for more discussion. Yes, Director
Are we
Wenning.
studying discussion?
I did not intend to start discussion
Oh, I
today.
thought it's
but
a discussion item.
Well, you may discuss it if you
Oh,
wish.
thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
All right.
The floor is yours. All joking aside, you have the floor.
Thank you. First off, I just want to thank you for putting out there a framework that really is helpful to every director, all the staff, to partners, potential partners, to try to give us like some definition of what we stand for. So thank you so much for that. I did want to discuss with you your definition of rent burden. It's something I care about deeply and haven't seen great allegiance to in other entities I've been on the board for. So this is something I'm very interested in making it happen here.
Okay.
So you have a really bold plan there. I love it, with the numbers of how many units to work toward building that are affordable.
Financially participating in.
Exactly.
Yes. Because we may not build anything. In theory, we may not build anything. We just have control.
Thank you. So since we're defining terms, could you define how you see rent burden? Because I know in Travis County that there's almost 50% of people that spend more than 30% of their wages on housing, and that 23% spend more than half.
I would have to go back. It's one of the American Community Survey measures of rent burden for the county.
Yeah.
For the county. Right. And when I looked at the most recent 5-year survey, the measure that I picked of rent burden was at 1/3. But it
was.
It can be.
Okay.
How can I say?
I think it's worse than portrayed in your, for Travis County. I think there's data that shows it's even worse than your quote.
I welcome any definition that is even worse.
It's even worse. It's even worse.
Yes.
Okay,
I think I was trying to convey there's plenty of rent burden.
Oh, it's bad.
So
it's
the more the merrier, I guess, in this situation.
It's almost 48%, I think.
Great.
Okay. And in terms of the bold numbers you put out there for us to participate.
Yes, financially participate.
Yes. I love it. It's a great goal. I think the challenge that maybe for future discussions is how do we stay on mission with our values while reaching those quantities, and ensure that the outcome on the other side of this is excellence in building thriving communities, high opportunities for low-income people. That's not easy.
No.
It's easier to achieve the numbers in some cases than it is to hold the values. So
Yes.
just want to make sure we address that in a discussion in the future.
Yes, I think that, it's why it's so important to refer to tenant well-being
Yeah,
and define that. I think fleshing that out is important. I think the concept I'm trying to introduce as a policy maker is how much is enough, right? And what's the point? What is the point of all these abatements?
That's
Sorry.
right.
That's right. So the point is not just you don't just run up the score, right? You're trying to win a championship. What is a championship in this situation? So in this situation, it is what in economics is called market power. And so we have sufficient market power to ensure the mission, which is affordability and tenant well-being. And so I think the challenge is that when we want to evaluate our time here and our impact with rigor, we have to say, yes, did we promote affordability with sufficient ambition and energy that it was meaningful in terms of altering the market? Because it's easy to just come to meetings and approve some units and say we're successful. The point of a strategic plan and something like a strategic outlook is to say with rigor, what is actual public value?
Yeah.
Because we have a bunch of 394s that can approve units. What's unique about us is our governance structure and the permission for ambition that we have written for ourselves. And so now let's go and be ambitious. And I think that in the ecology that we have, the different entities that exist have different, some of them are income support for a PHA, some of them are an appendage of elected officials that have a narrow mandate. Some of them, like HFC, are huge and have so much going on that they're taking their own approach to the problem. We have a special opportunity, but in having to pick a number, the number has to be based on first principles. And I think that the correct first principle for us is how do we financially participate in enough units that we can sort of nudge the market in the right direction over decades. And so the plan is not, a strategic plan is not about what do we accomplish this year. It's about how does this next 5 years fit into the next 50 years. And the strategic outlook is many versions of that is like, how does that the next year fit into the 5 years that fit into the next 50 years. One final thing, as Director Gray was going through the scoreboard, I think we got to remember, if you had told me 2 years ago that we could line up 3,000 workforce units with half of them essentially under roughly decommoditized rents, given the flow we were looking at then, I would have been like, impossible.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? No way. Obviously, it's a unique macro environment. It's this year, I do not expect every year to be like this year, but it gives you a sense that there's some latitude there, and it's okay to be ambitious and fulfill the ambition we've written for ourselves. So I would say, as we talk about it, we gotta pick a reason for being that's more than just we do deals, I guess. There's just gotta be a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
And this is like a first stab at that. Reaction? Yes.
I'm sorry, just to finish my comment on it. Again, bold, fully support it. Do you have any guesstimate on time frame for that goal?
Well, it depends on.
It's not a plan, it's just an outlook, but.
I think it depends on it's up to what the market and resources the public is willing to provide us. But I think what we want to do is position ourselves to get there as fast as possible, while living with our dual mandate of preserve and build as much supply, but protect the taxpayers.
Yep.
This year we've been able to put up some good numbers and act as a very thoughtful counter-cyclical agent in the market, given the macro environment. We will see. We'll see. The county has a lot of ambitions. For example, the childcare TRE is an example of, I think, some of the ambitions that are coming to the county. We shall see where we fit into that puzzle. Okay, good director talk. Seeing no, yes, Director Weber. Some good director talk here.
Just process questions. So is a strategic outlook something that we would post on our website, or is that more of an internal document? And then would it look something like sections 2 and 3 of your post? Like, is that what it would look like?
That's up to discussion, but think of it as like a mini strategic plan. And so most entities, when you go, they're like, what's your strategic plan? Especially one we're getting bigger and we're doing a lot of stuff. They usually have one, and we used to have one, which was HATSE's. So that's where this would go. So we can make it, if you're saying, what should the table of contents layout presentation, that's up in the air, I think.
Okay, so what you've posted is really just an outline of a longer document that you're anticipating?
Potentially.
Okay.
Although as someone that has written professionally many strategic plans, I think that they are inaccessible to the people they tend to serve and become a Christmas tree, a holiday tree, that dull the ability of an organization to know what it's trying to accomplish. So if we were to have a conversation about format, I would say it should be brief and to the point, with a lot of pictures. But it's easy for the staff to know, what do we care about? Good units, fast, and not get into the side tangents of every other potential thing that we touch. It's clear what we're trying to accomplish. But that's me. But this is a discussion we're supposed to have as we craft the plan.
Okay.
When will we revisit this?
With the board's pleasure.
Okay.
All right, great. So with that, we will move to item number 2, or B in this case, on discussion item, succession planning. You may or may not be aware that Director Gonzalez Altamirano, Director Reams, and Director Weber have their terms finishing up this December. And the rest of y'all have your terms finishing up the subsequent December. Today, as we speak, one of our colleagues is potentially being selected to fill a vacancy. I wanted to again bring up sort of a desire to have a conversation about what our personal plans are, of when we might be leaving or reapplying, or what we're thinking, in part because we do not want to all leave at once or leave unexpectedly. Some things are beyond our control. And also because, as you know and just witnessed from our little back and forth on the strategic outlook, we've accumulated a lot of harmony and a lot of shared understanding, terms, and history. So certain things are now very smooth, and there is a level of coherence that we've developed over time. So we need to take the time to be intentional in figuring out how we all move on and do whatever is next for us with the time that we have invested in strategic HFC in a way that doesn't undermine the progress that we have made. I can tell you, as I've told almost all of you, repeatedly, So this is not a surprise. I will be applying for another 2-year term, but it will be absolutely 100% my final term. And so I do not know if the court will choose to reappoint me. Light your candles, fellow colleagues. But that is my plan. I hope that as you reflect on sort of this point that I'm making, you will think about your plans, and if and when you feel comfortable sharing to facilitate thoughtful succession planning, we can sort of bring this conversation back up. Any reactions to that?
I'm having them in my head.
Yeah, me too.
Wondering, let's see, so, it seems like our efforts to recruit specific skill sets or specific, potential board members who share our philosophies will, at least, this round, have not been successful with the Commissioners Court. As far as I can tell, it'll be interesting, I guess, to see who they pick and how that goes. But I was really disappointed that the Commissioners Court didn't even acknowledge all the work we put into trying to recruit the right person to join the board, and went directly against something that I had asked individual commissioners, and I know others of us did too. So that it left a sour feeling with me about volunteering for this board, but I'm watching and waiting, I guess. I'm sorry if that was rambly, but I don't,
It's valid.
maybe just to put it in starker terms, I don't feel seen by the Commissioners Court, even though I think I'm doing everything right to get on their radar. And I'm not in this field professionally, so I'm not building my career with this volunteer work. So, I don't know, I'm just disappointed in the Commissioners Court and not sure that, I have a lot to offer. Maybe I could offer it, at a different board that was more supported.
Right. I think that if I may engage that, I think that my approach to our relationship with our appointers is, ultimately they are the ones that face the voters, and so we have to act with fidelity to the direction they choose. Because we are a public enterprise that is increasingly employing people with real careers and real needs, and engaging real partners who are building real units, serving real people, we do need to find a way to ensure that we act as a professional, sustainable corporation, public enterprise. So, my path, assuming I am reappointed, will remain to build an advisory board so that when so that folks get acclimated to our approach, and so that when vacancies open, they are compelling candidates who may or may not be chosen. That would be different from the circumstances we experienced this year, which were unique, although directionally, emotionally, I share many of your sentiments. And then in terms of individual decisions about how our service and I certainly feel if it wasn't because if I weren't, if I hadn't asked people to join and, told partners that we're gonna be a certain kind of entity, or I feel an obligation to be present longer to ensure that the thing that we are building is left in a place where it is self-sustaining. But like many of you, I have endured, trauma and discontent. Then I'm excited to take some of the labor that I invest here other places. I think what I am trying to do with this conversation is acknowledge that we are all of a vintage that has gone through something together. Deadlines are coming up, and so if we are as we make the decisions, let's do it in a way that helps the enterprise continue on the good path we have put it in through our efforts.
Do we know when that deadline for expiring terms is to
It's-
reapply?
To reapply, no. I've reached out to
Julie Wheeler.
Julie Wheeler.
Okay.
And we will find out, but she also reacts to the court, and the court has many things on its plate.
Yeah.
I thought it was important for us to start talking about it, because if there are maybe going to be changes in the composition, potentially significant ones, we do need time to, as we know from trying to find one good person, it takes a while to get people to participate. So everybody, please reflect on it. And yes, you have a question.
I do have something to say.
Okay.
What I would like to ask you is, so moving forward, is the advisory board going to be replacing the residents with residents if they decide to not, or they're not approved to run again? Or is it going to be an open spot for residents?
Mhm.
Or is it just going to be solid, just straight board directors, no residents?
The advisory board is a way of getting new people with the same kinds of skills and profiles as the full board.
Mm-hmm.
I think focus on a task that is important to us, so that they're not just shadow junior board members, but handling a real task that is important. I think my intention was always there would, because we're trying to mirror the composition, that there would be tenants. How we define that, for an affordable housing tenant, potentially affordable, how we define that, the specifics is something we can talk in length. But that was always my intention. But we might decide we just want something else, or it's to be determined. And it's not supposed to be a replacement for us. It's supposed to be a body that helps us do our job, that also provides candidates to the court, so that when Lisa says, I'm done, or Julio says, I've afflicted you all with me enough, they have a bunch of good people to pick from, as opposed to what happens now, right, which is, with the exception of our tenant reps who had a very clear reason to be here, we're just, as I've said to y'all before, like random do-gooders who ended up here,
I don't know about that.
Well, but really.
That's how I feel about
Yes,
it.
that's how I feel, yeah. It's like,
I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
and let's have people who know a little bit more. Like, we've been through this. It's like, I didn't know that much about light tech until,
Right.
I got here. I knew it. I thought I knew stuff, but no, I didn't. And so let's help people not spend 2 years figuring this stuff out.
But I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that this board will always have 2 residents or former residents.
I think it's in our bylaws.
It's in our bylaws.
And there's
Yeah.
no one will,
Yes.
I don't
Yes,
think.
yeah.
None of us will want to change that.
Yeah.
Nobody's changing that, I don't think, yeah.
Yeah. What the advisory board
You said
composition.
advisory board, I was like, wait.
No, it's, think of it as like a committee of,
A cabinet.
yes, like a helper team for us that is therefore hearing and
A JV.
helping us. Yeah, I don't, some of them will probably exceed our capabilities, so but yeah, it's like the, JV might be the right one.
I like that,
Yeah,
Nice work.
but we'll see, that was my
Or
solution.
specialists even, like
Yeah.
who can consult, yeah.
Because the dilemma the court faces, if we were to, for a moment, be empathetic about their situation, is they gotta fill the spots, it's hard to find people, they end up with random do-gooders, like us, and then they pick the best that they can. We obviously went through a peculiar journey this year, in replacing a current vacancy, but I think if we create a system and a structure where they have a sense of, oh, these are the folks who have invested time, they're compelling, maybe they should get a priority this time or a strong look, that will give us more sustainability. My big concern is, as we've gotten so much more sophisticated and we're contemplating so much more scale, it's very hard to just, could you imagine like just getting dropped into what we're doing like we were in spring of 22 or whatever? I mean, it would be asking too much, and that's ultimately a disservice to the team in addition. Dr. Weinig.
Yeah, I just want to thank Director Weber for her candid response to what we know is in the works in terms of a future appointment to our board and what happened to our preferred candidates status with the Commissioner's Court. I had the exact same response you did. It just kind of like gutted me, and I felt like, okay, I'm a volunteer. I'm like doing a lot of training, self-training to learn all this stuff, and I'm, putting in hours, and we just didn't even get a response to our emails, not even a nod, not even to our questions, no answers, invisible was the perfect word you used. That was a hard pill to swallow, given, the amount of collective concern and work and passion and time we spend on this. That was a hard pill to swallow. And so I did deflate. I think I'm coming back. But I definitely went down on that. I did do a little research on what the heck happened to our preferred candidate, and I understand there's an IGR policy that was half made that's now about to be issued and published, that a Travis County employee cannot sit on any of the boards under the County Commissioner's Court. And so, unbeknownst to us, we were nominating somebody that they were going to bring down. That's what I've got so far, but I don't think that really explains why we had not even a nod, a phone call, an email, a response. And to our president's point here just a minute ago, when you and I met with Commissioner Margaret Gomez, she made it really clear she wants just like rando do-gooders. We were like taking her up on that because we're like, well, I think some skills would be helpful. Well, I think a little bit of training and interest in this sector would be like a leg up, because I can't even tell you how hard I had to work to learn some of these terminology and stuff. And she was like definitely wading the other way, like we want just members of the community with no background. So I think there's a gap between what we know collectively, and we are a team now of people who come together and are, really assertively looking at these issues and trying to solve problems, and what it took to get to this level of competence, and what would happen to somebody just coming in. The onboarding is one thing, but I don't think we've got an onboarding process that can accomplish that in a period of months with somebody with no background. So
That's how the residents felt when we came in. Yeah. Like, dark room, white room. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We had no direction at all, and we figured it out. We latched on and stayed on.
You did.
Toxic. Need therapy after every.
Well, it's an educational gap. That's what it was, but it wasn't pointed out until now.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we can caucus at some point and talk about communication with our appointers.
I think the two requests I would make is, one, think about your plans, and if you may be thinking about the end of your service, let's communicate with each other so that we have time to convey to the county bureaucracy and the court what is happening, and also so that we can carry out our vision of how we ensure enterprise sustainability by being proactive in seeking out talent. And then let's also think about this other dilemma, which is we have evolved so fast and are in a place where we need to help the court and perhaps the public understand that we are a specialized enterprise, not an advisory body, and so and not a that requires a certain level of time, technical know-how, patience, and board skill to be able to maintain the effectiveness that we have relative to where we started. I don't have anything else on this. Are there any items under 7 of new and unfinished business that folks want to raise for future sessions?
I would just like to remind everyone that I posted a red line of the bylaws, and it was just a first pass. There's a much deeper pass that probably needs to be done on it, but please look at that. I posted it on the form.
And I was going to raise the item because I think you have done a really good cleanup, and
And she.
I was gonna, there's a lot that needs to be fixed there, and there's some interesting directions you took it. I will provide feedback on the discussion forum. In general, I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad you're doing this. The second thing I was gonna raise as a new unfinished business is TOMA, because in your cleanup, you referenced TOMA. And Director Weber, I don't know your position on this, and so I want to wade into this carefully. Our friends at, say, Talfa have in the past said that TOMA does not apply to us. As you know, most of us, if not all of us, feel that this community's expectation of any entity, and especially one that's giving tax abatements, is that you're going to follow TOMA, or what TOMA is. The part of me that is married to and lives with a person that received legal training in America and has a JD makes me feel like, wait, I don't want to commit to any obligations unless I really, really have to. That would be a disservice to the enterprise and myself. And so there's a part of me that's like, well, how do we balance this? How do we balance the fact that in our hearts we voluntarily want to comply with TOMA? We think it's how this community operates, for better or for worse. But we also want to give ourselves maybe some wiggle room from time to time around some TOMA things, or maybe not. And so the new issue, which is not high priority because I think we've been very good at trying to TOMA it, is we just got to make a call. Because in the bylaws, you are referencing TOMA in a way that makes you feel like you're saying, so you apply to us. And
That was my intention.
Yes, okay. And so would you be for, let's bind ourselves and say, even though some may argue TOMA does not apply to us, we are going to follow TOMA?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So that's one position, but?
I'd be interested in seeing, there's some kind of legal advice from Talfa about this?
Yeah, there's a boot camp.
At the Talfa boot camp, there was a presentation, and one of the slides, this was a big revelation to some of us, because when we first joined, it's like TOMA applies to you, and then having been on a city board and commission, yada yada yada, you're like, yeah, TOMA, that's just the warm embrace of the legislature, no way around it. But then at Talfa, we got a slide and it's like, nope, read it. You know, A through F, look at the entities that are covered by TOMA. HFC's Chapter 304 is not it. You don't have to worry about that. That's different from Public Information Act.
Yeah.
But
No.
TOMA, you know, you're free. We have always operated as, let's assume we're covered. It's a community expectation. Local courts, our local courts, you never know what they're gonna come up with. So why even get in trouble? I feel comfortable binding ourselves to TOMA. It's just, we just gotta make an official decision, make a call, and train people and refer to it correctly.
I mean, I just learned about that Telfa thing from
I
Jan's
posted it on the
post.
message board.
Yeah, so that was news to me.
Yeah. But I did, just to back up my comments on the message board, which you may not have had a chance to see.
May not have.
Okay, because I did all the things you just said. I
Okay.
put it on the message board,
Uh-huh.
and I added the word, well, maybe we can say we're choosing to adhere to it instead of we must comply. Just some language, but also to the point, we're about to onboard some staff, and we really do want to explain what entity we are, that we're not a governmental entity, and make it clear to the staff that they don't work for Travis County, and we're not, you know, a government entity, and we're this nonprofit corporation, and our professional association recommends that we voluntarily adhere to TOMA, but we're not required to. But and we're going to see Ryan Bowen, the attorney that I conferred with around conflict of interest at Talfa. He's going to be there doing the boot camp again. So
Right, and so what I think that what I would recommend is, you know, with GFA, like staff is already committed to also take a look at the bylaws, and I think we can work, you know, also with Naaman Howell and others. What I want to understand is, we clearly have been complying with posting of meetings and quorum, et cetera. We want to make sure that if we are saying we are voluntarily complying with TOMA, we intend to comply with the whole shebang, right? And because there may be elements of it that are less common and more onerous. And so let's take a look at it.
So for example, subpoint B, as you know, the city is today or recently adopted an ordinance to deal with how they do citizen communication, how you sign up. If you look at our agenda,
that's true.
we provide this little blurb of guidance at the top of how you do citizen communication.
That's true.
I would suspect that per local decisions of what TOMA is, at least in Travis County, you know, we are not in compliance with ensuring that people who want to provide testimony on our items, I don't know if we are in the right place with TOMA, so we will need to clean up things like that, that we just don't think that much about, because we know we're in this area where we can say, well, we're trying our best, and it doesn't even apply to us. If we were going to do it, we would have to do it for real, and then things like that we would need to clean up, plus other things we don't know. I think the plan of let's have GFA have a first stab at telling us how we want to do it makes sense, because I do want us, I think as we get more people in and we have more time to deal with some of these items, let's just clean it up, because it's always been there as a where do we want to land it. I joined Director Weber in believing that the community expectation of an entity like ours, particularly because we go with these abatements, is that we have to comply with the established standard, and that is TOMA. Any other new or unfinished business? Okay, seeing no objection, this meeting is adjourned at 2:39 p.m.